Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I'm really delighted you're with us today. And, the plain fact is pretty universally known by now, and it happens to all of us. Those that we love, and sometimes those that we love the most, who are older than we are very likely to go on ahead of us to the next stage of life. And for some of us, as it was for our dear, wonderful friend Sandra Champlain, to have someone we love die is going to be an occasion for deciding that now is the time to really research death and to figure it all out. That didn't happen for me. I had that experience of light when I was only 8. And I had to just figure out where that had how all happened. Where did it come from? So I started researching before I knew anybody who had died. But there are other people who have had Champlain's experience, and so it was also for our beautiful guest today. Elizabeth Entin began examining if there was evidence of an afterlife and anything paranormal at all in 2015, following the passing of her father. She still considers herself to be skeptical. Well, I, believe it or not, consider myself to be skeptical too. However, I can't be skeptical of the truth, so therefore my skepticism is pretty small at this point, but she thinks of herself also as kind of an atheist, although she is a cultural Jew. And the evidence that she discovered for the afterlife when she started to do this research in 2015, she says the evidence for the afterlife blew her away. She's the author of two books in what she calls the WTF Just Happened series. The first one is Book One. WTF Just Happened, a sciencey skeptic explores grief, healing, and evidence of an afterlife. The second one is Book Two in the WTF Just Happened series. A sciencey skeptic investigates even more evidence of an afterlife and fights for justice with her dead dog. Now that's I haven't read that one yet, but that sounds like a pretty good one too. She's the host of a podcast called WTF Just Happened, all about the afterlife. No woo, and I know just what she means by that. She also runs Science and Spirituality, which is a private events group, an intimate group of just you and your friends where you can learn more about the science behind an afterlife and get readings from highly evidential mediums who have been tested by scientists. Oh, Liz, welcome. You're doing wonderful work, and we're delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. You've been doing wonderful work too, and it was very helpful to me in my early days. So I so appreciate it.
Well, I told Liz that she and I and Sandra Champlain and a few others are in a very elite little circle. People who didn't believe even the little bits that they could find. They just didn't trust the evidence that they were seeing that other people had gathered. So we set about finding the truth for ourselves. Now, when I did this work, it was early 70s. It was before even the publication of the books about the near-death experiences that suddenly started to flood the field in the mid 70s. And so I finally, in old bookstores, started to find books that had been written in the early part of the 20th century. And there was very little that I could find, but what I found, I read over a 2-year period, and it convinced me, I have to say, way back then. But there was a whole new set of evidence that our guest today was able to find, and I'm interested in having her explain to you what she did when her father died. Now, talk to us about that. Your father died at what age?
Well, he had me later in life. So I was in my mid 20s, but he was the age of most of my friends' grandparents. So he was in his 80s, but I couldn't really process that because that was so much older than, you know, what
It was time. I mean, 80s
it was.
is a
Yeah,
good old age.
it
Okay.
was. But yeah, I guess, for me, I was like, I'm not ready to lose my dad at all,
No, not at
and
all.
yeah,
So,
so
so what did you do? You said you were skeptical. You couldn't believe.
yeah,
When someone you love dies, it's a universal feeling. I cannot believe that person no longer exists. And you couldn't believe it either, right?
it was. it was just unfathomable. It was like I didn't even know it was beyond just like the pain. I'd always imagined grief was like pain, but the way it felt was really different than I could picture than I had pictured in advance. It was like beyond just like sadness. It was like there was just no way I could fathom how to exist in the world. It was just like, what do
No
I do from
way.
minute to minute? And,
Right.
just it seemed like I couldn't even imagine a life I would enjoy again. I couldn't imagine minute to minute. It was just nothing felt real, but in a really awful way.
Oh
So.
Lord. And did you get any signs from him that you thought were signs?
So, well, that took me a long time to get there before I even knew what a sign was. I didn't know what any of this was. All I'd heard of was it was either atheism or religion. And, atheism made sense.
That's a big
Religion.
problem. Yes, a
Yeah.
lot of people feel that way too. You've got to
Yeah.
go with beliefs, and
Yeah.
and frankly, in Judaism, the beliefs are not what what even Christians believe. There's not a sort of solid sense of because I've studied Judaism. I actually love Judaism, I have to tell you, very much. I belong to a Chabad in Chestnut Hill,
Thing.
Massachusetts, just because I love it so much. And I mean, Jesus is still a Jew. He never converted to Christianity. Um, but
Yeah.
that's another story to tell.
Yeah.
And I know what it must have been like for you. I hear from people all the time who cannot even process the thought that this person that they love so much is no longer here. Where did they go?
Yeah. That's what it felt. I remember walking around one day and just being like, it just made no sense that I could go anywhere on the whole planet and he wouldn't be there. And I guess my very, very first thought, and this isn't as much afterlife evidence, so I won't go into it too much, but my very first thought that even opened me up to researching all this was most science fiction tends to come true, and time travel is science fiction. Is there any way to turn back time? For all we know, we're doing it all every day, and we don't even know we are. We don't know that time's linear. We just might perceive it that way. And that was my
Oh,
very first thought.
may not be
And
linear. You're right. That's perfectly reasonable.
yeah, I'm like, if it isn't, we have no idea. If we're time traveling, we always assume in time travel that people know they're doing it. That's how the movies make it. But if you're just hopping back in time, you might have no idea. So, you
There he
know,
would be.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
dear.
So I just read everything on like Einstein's theories of time relativity and everything. And I was like, wait, time travel actually is possible. It's not practical. It's not easy. Don't have the capacity to
Not
build
practical.
spaceships that
No.
travel that fast. But the fact that time works so differently, it was kind of like, what else? What else is different than I think? And that was my very next thought was I only thought consciousness was created by a brain. That was the only thing at that point that made sense to me. And my very next thought was if you think the concept of eternity, eternal big bangs, big crunches, evolutions of species on planets, if you think that, even if it takes another trillion years, it makes no sense. And another set of brain neurons wouldn't create a different person I would get to be, and a different person my dad would get to be. And, if all you thought before was you were obliterated, that's certainly better option because I would have preferred to be me again, have my dad again. But I was like, I'll take the brain. And then was the life changing thing because then I had a thought if this is the case, is there somehow, by some way, by some mechanism I don't understand, that someone has a memory of this? And I Googled that. That's where I found Dr. Jim Tucker and Dr. Ian Stevenson, the Division of Perceptual Studies. And once you find one piece of the research,
Yes.
you find it all with the
The coach
algorithm. So
string. Yes. Yes.
so
So, all right, you started with the reincarnation work that
mhm,
they did,
yes.
and then that led you to books about the afterlife.
Everything. Yeah. So basically, it was like me just huddled in bed reading every Dr. Tucker, Dr. Stevenson study, and then finding the other researchers. I found Windbridge with Dr. Julie Beischel and
Yeah.
all of her studies on up to quintuple blinded studies on psychic mediums. And I found, you know,
Wow. And then,
all yeah, historic cases like the Society for Cyclical Research, just evidence after evidence after evidence that our consciousness was operating in some way that I would now use the words like non-local, but then I would just was like, this is operating in some way I don't understand. And it seems that our personality survives. But after reading every single study, I was like, I've got to see for myself. I have to start getting my own medium readings. And that was the change to the next level.
so did you then reach your father that way?
Oh yeah. So I started getting medium readings. Not all of them were great, but
I
the
yes.
first one, yeah.
Yeah, the
And then
first
once,
ones, that's what happens because
yeah.
I really think what I found when I started doing research with mediums
Mhm.
was that most of my loved ones, after they'd given me a couple of readings, they stopped coming through. They didn't want to bother. All right, we proved to you we're here.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we got important stuff to do here. We're off doing other things. There were a couple of them. My son-in-law, a few people would always come through very dependably. My mother-in-law, but other than that, they just couldn't be bothered. And that's what
Right.
happens. So I tell people go to the best medium first because pretty soon they're not going to come through at all. They just can't be bothered.
Again, it was just I was getting so many. Well, some mediums just weren't as skilled, or maybe they were more spiritual rather than evidence based. I shouldn't,
But no, some of
that
them
could be
are
it.
not as skilled.
Yeah.
I would say most are not very skilled.
Yeah.
That's what I that
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but I think it's true.
I think that, yeah, that seems to be what happens when they start delving into the research and statistics of who can get very, very evidence-based information. And not everyone
Just
needs
are a
that.
few
Maybe,
little things you need that nobody could know. One
exactly.
bit out of that whole reading, about half an hour, whatever it is, that's it. Then you know
Hmm.
they have reached your loved one, and none of the rest of it matters. Yeah,
Exactly.
it is huge. It's so huge. So when the first time you really got what you know was your father, how did that feel?
I mean, first it was just like this first reading because she's one of the best, and I sense unfortunately she's not doing readings anymore. But I found out later some people knew her and she was considered amazing. So it was like astounding. It was like chills. I really didn't even have my own words for it. The only word I ended up when I described my book, I used a quote by Dr. Dean Radin because it's the only way. It was just like, and he used it to describe with quantum entanglement, but it was just a quote that it was like once you experience it, I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to butcher it. But basically,
Right.
he's like, before you have this, you'd say the word profound, and once you experience it, profound doesn't even come close. There's
Yes,
just
yes,
no
yes,
words.
yes.
It was like watching the entire laws of the universe different in front of you. It would be like going to another planet and talking to a different species. It was just like it was indescribable. It was especially with my views on survival of consciousness before this. I was just like, this is the entire, it was inexplicable.
I
So,
know he lives. I know
yeah.
it's fine.
Mhm.
And I'm going to see him again.
Mhm.
I mean, that everything is turned upside down now for me. It's a whole new reality. Everything is different now. I know.
Right.
I had that experience too. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's not what am I going to do with the rest of my life? It's what am I going to do with the rest of my eternity? It's all
Right.
different now. Yes.
Different game. Yeah. Yeah. Although I can't lie, like the next day, I started questioning again. I was like, did I do this? Is there some way? And I'm actually glad I
It
did because
takes
that
you a
just,
while to accept that reality really is that different.
yes,
Especially because you know it's different, but how is it possible that science is so wrong? Wrong.
that that was an issue. I was
Wrong.
like, if this was true, why aren't the biggest scientists jumping all over this? And so I was like, there must be a catch. that I'm just
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
smart enough to have understood, but someone who's either highly trained like Penn and Teller or just smart to a level I'm not to knock myself, but I'm not Stephen Hawking. So it was like I was like, it's something that someone of Stephen Hawking's level or like Penn and Teller trained magicians would just have looked and been like, oh, that. And it was just I was not capable of seeing it. And the majority of people not capable of seeing it unless you're a specialist or a level of intelligence that almost none of us are. So I was caught in that for a while because I was like, because if this was real, Stephen Hawking, Bill Nye,
Yes.
like they would
Yes.
stop
All the
everything.
smartest scientists would be all over it. Yes. Yes.
Right, right.
It took me another 10 years of researching science before I
Hmm.
really understood how they could all be that stupid. Really.
Yeah, they're brilliant in many ways, but not here.
Well,
And I
but,
will
but I
say,
came to understand why they
why?
can't do the science that you and I have are able to do so easily. And the reason why is because in the early part of the 20th century, when we got quantum mechanics, um, they realized that it was a whole new ballgame now because unfortunately they became very worried that we had found God, and they were terrified that that was going to be something that someone would actually say, because in fact we had found God. I think most people know that now, um, because we had found that consciousness is the underlying source of reality. So they could not allow that to happen because they thought we had found the religious God, which we had not. Religions are more clueless even than science is to this day. And so what happened was in the early part of the 20th century, very early part, call it around the tens, all of the keepers of the scientific community, the university departments, the peer-reviewed journals, those who keep track of who is and who is not doing good science, established materialism as what they then called, believe it or not, you could see it in print back then, the fundamental scientific dogma. It was they established materialism as a fundamental scientific dogma. If you're not doing materialist science, you are not a scientist. And to this day, I am told that doing, if you are a physicist in training, if you're getting some kind of a physics degree in a university, and you're not going to do materialist physics, if you're going to do some kind of consciousness-based physics, don't bother to get a degree because you'll never get a job.
Right,
That is
right.
why scientists don't know what you and I have discovered because they're not
Right.
allowed to investigate it. It's that simple. It's really that simple.
Yeah. And I have heard actually that behind closed doors, a lot of them are a lot more open to this than they'll say publicly.
They can't say it publicly. I
Hmm.
just saw I'm doing another blog post, and one of the things I'm including is a 2022 TED Talk about dark energy and dark matter, primarily dark matter. A TED Talk. Now, if it's a TEDx talk, it's probably good. If it's a TED Talk on the main TED stage, it's the best. This is a major, major theoretical physicist talking about leading edge science. And what she said was 22 minutes of frank idiocy, talking about what kind of particle we're allowed to research on what is inside dark matter. The most frank idiocy.
Wait, she was exposing it? She was saying how much they're not allowed to, or she was
No, no, no,
sharing?
no, no. She would never
Okay.
expose this. That would be the end of her career.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered if it
No,
was
no,
the
no.
end
She is
of
just saying this is where we are. This is
Mhm.
it's I forgot now what kind of, it doesn't even matter what kind of, there's no particles inside dark matter and dark energy, obviously. It's all
Mhm.
consciousness based. But she could never
Mhm.
say that.
Mm.
They don't know what consciousness is. They could never
And
say what consciousness is because it still to this day, it has to originate inside the human brain. Now,
it's so, oh, sorry.
no,
Go
I
on.
was just going to add, just as an afterthought, where's I feed the birds, the squirrels, and the deer outside my window. Where does their consciousness originate, I wonder?
Yeah. And we don't really
It's
know
not
where it
there.
all,
What about the plants that are on my window? They have a consciousness too, it turns out.
I've been learning that. That's so crazy.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's so
books are being
fascinating.
written now about the consciousness of plants. I wonder where their consciousness originates.
Mm. It's, yeah, I mean, I think if one brain works where it's,
They can't
more
even find
downloads,
our
then
consciousness.
that's how
They
brains
certainly aren't
work.
going to be able to find the squirrel's consciousness, I wouldn't think.
Hmm.
Or what about the little teeny tiny mouse's consciousness? That's kind of a little bitty brain to produce a consciousness.
And what I found was really a game changer for me was thinking about the whole hard problem of consciousness. Even if it was created by a brain, they have no idea how that works either. And then that's just as weird as if it was downloaded by a brain. And
It's not, it's yes, all
and
of it.
so then,
Vicious,
yeah,
bipolar, right, right. But I
yeah, they
couldn't get
act like
over a
it's
3-year-old
logical.
TED Talk that was still that clueless. They really have not made any advancement at all. Not
Mhm.
since Max Planck said we can't get behind consciousness. And he said that in what, 2022 or something like that. I mean, 19 rather, 1922. He said
Yeah.
that we can't get behind consciousness, kids. The game's over. The materialist game is over. There's nothing behind consciousness. You can't get behind it.
Which is so bad because then, people are in grief and, you hear that and it hurts.
That's right.
But
And
yeah.
we're supposed to tell them, we who do grief counseling are supposed to tell them, you have your memories, dear. We're not supposed to say the reason that 95% of reality is dark is just because it's not material. It's not material because it doesn't interact with photons of light, because
Mhm.
it's nothing to do with matter. Matter is this little bitty 5% that we come to every so often to try to advance ourselves spiritually. That's it. Then we go home to what is real because it's not material.
Right. Yeah, and it's so
Focus,
joyful when
focus,
you
change
start
your
getting the
focus. It's
evidence.
so stupid. It really
Oh,
is all stupid, but it's wonderful, wonderful to be studying what you're studying.
it's so life-changing.
It
And
is transformative. It's totally
then,
transformative and joyous.
joyous, that's the word. It's just like w- there's so much joy in one sense. I'm so grateful that I used to think otherwise, even though there was a lot of existential dread and anxieties. But it's just because uncovering it even to this day, it's like I still question it a little bit. So every time like I read a new study or have it get another sign from my
It took
dad
me
or
years, my dear.
other people.
It took me a couple of decades to stop
Mhm.
questioning. It will take you a
Did
while
it?
more. It's okay.
Yeah. And you don't question it all anymore.
Oh no, of course not.
Oh, wonderful.
I have a lot of friends in this community. They get up in the morning and they say, "Well, one day closer."
Yeah, yeah. I
And
mean,
you'll get there too. I mean, when someone I love transitions, we call it that now. I'm
yeah.
just happy for them. When my mother transitioned, she was 93. She had lost every one of the activities of daily living. I was so happy for her.
Mm,
I couldn't cry. How could you
yeah.
cry? I've talked with her since, and she is so happy. And she is
Hmm.
traveling. She's doing what she missed so much when she lost all her activities of daily living. Oh my goodness, she's so happy now. My mother is a piece of work, even more now than she was when she was here.
Oh, that's
Right.
wonderful that it's still her personality.
Oh,
Yeah,
completely. Not only do they not lose who they are, if they were a good person, and she was such a good person, she lived to help other people. She
yeah.
is full of beans, and she is just so much the person she was, and even more so.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
and I've been getting signs from my dad too that show at first just showing he's around, and now that show his personality more. And then I've got signs from my mentor, and I still every time it's like I have the dual voices, the oh my God, this is amazing. And then the questioning, how could this have happened? But what ends up amazing is when I start questioning, how could this have happened if materialism was the answer? It can't have happened. That's what it always comes down to. This cannot have happened. It absolutely, it
They're
just
very
can't.
respectful of us. Don't you notice that? They're
Mhm.
careful never to startle us, never to shock us. Very respectful. And they will not, I mean, a lot of people will say, "Why haven't I heard from him?" And the reason is they're still in deep grief. And if they're in grief, it might
Mhm.
shock them to get a
Right.
sign. So they're very careful. They get a little tiny sign, nothing big,
Hmm.
because
And
they
well,
love us so much. They don't want to startle us.
right. And then it seems like signs, like the people I know that have always believed more, like they'll just get loving signs. And then people who are super skeptical, like me, like I'll get the like blow it away, like science-based, this can't happen signs.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I maybe don't get them as much as someone, or I maybe I do and I don't notice because it's not, as hard to do. And I could, if there's an easier or normal explanation, I don't believe it. But then
yeah.
I notice, when I get like, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share a sign or two if you would like me to.
Sure. Yeah, tell us what you've been getting.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell one of my early signs. There's a few just mind-blowing ones I got. And this was when I just started reading about signs and I was like, this makes no sense. Come on. And so very early on, I was still in deep grief. I'd had a few medium readings. I was still like reading every study and I was into the point of maybe, but still not in great shape. And I grew up in New York in the city, and I used to play by like the Central Park boat pond. And I also walk really fast. Like I'm a fast walker, and even when I don't have to be anywhere, it's just like how I'm comfortable moving. So one day I'm taking a walk through Central Park and I'm passing the boat pond. And this is very rare that people will float little like model boats in the pond. Once in a while you'll see it, but not often. And I remember loving seeing them when I was a kid. And so I start like walking really slowly, like just going to a dream state that I wasn't even logically understanding why I was doing it. It wasn't like, oh, let me try to get meditative. It was like I just started zoning out. And I started in a very like dissociated or focused on this, but dissociated from everything else way. Started staring at a boat that was on the side of the boat pond, and I walk along and I walk around it to the side of the boat that was not facing me. And I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm like meandering over. I look and it had my dad's name written on it. And I was like, oh my God. I to this day regret I didn't take a picture. I didn't. I was in so much shock. And then my logical brain was like, don't start taking pictures and thinking everything's a sign. It was, when you're a skeptic, it's like sometimes that voice can be destructive too, because I'm like, how did I not take a picture? How did I
Yeah,
not
yeah,
take a
right, right,
picture?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
that
is in the
was
beginning. You start saying, "Oh, that wasn't a sign because it didn't have, the umlaut over we used to put over his e or whatever stupid
right,
thing. You'll find a reason why it wasn't a sign, or
right.
or if it's a license plate. A lot of people will see license plate signs, and then they'll say,
Yes.
"Oh, but it wasn't the state he was born in," or
Right.
all kinds of stupid things people will do to themselves to make just be in denial for so long.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just it's sad, really. It really is sad. I mean, I'm glad I
It
never
is.
had that phase because when I convinced myself, when I was doing all that research, I hadn't had anybody die. It was
Oh,
clinical research completely for me.
know that. I thought it was Greek based too. Okay. Oh
I,
wow.
I mean,
So
and I was doing reading, doing all this reading of these books, and you could find them in used bookstores because it was only in some cases 50 or 60 years after the books had been written, and the people who had first bought the book and and read it they were just dying then in the 70s, and so they were putting them in the used bookstores, and I got to buy all those books, and I still have them now. But it was wonderful because I was reading these. There was a group of them that had been written in Great Britain, in the southern part of, around London, and another group that had been written in eastern Massachusetts, or Boston area, and New York. And so I
Mm.
was reading these sets of books that been written through the great transmediums of the day.
Wow.
And what astonished me first was these people had died in these really three different areas. And yet they'd all gone to precisely the same place, the same physics, the same, process, the same
Mm.
little details, the same, all the same. And yet they were not the same people who had died, clearly. But and there were such good stories, but all different stories. It was like reading. I said in my book, The Fun of Dying, it was like reading a whole bunch, like hundreds of accounts of people who had all gone to Fiji, and
Hmm.
they all told different stories, but they clearly had all gone to the same place. It was impossible for this not to be real, and that was the first thing that convinced me this was all real. It was really
Interesting.
quite amazing. I said, if I were a scientist, say someone who studies Fiji, I would have to say, that has to be a real place, or these stories could not all be real. So that was what first convinced me when I was just out of college that this has to be real. And then it
Wow.
started then to be kind of fun. And right
Hmm.
after that, we got the book, what was the book called about near-death experiences?
Oh, Raymond Moody's
Oh,
book.
Brett
That was
Moody's
the
book.
first one. I can't remember the name, but yeah.
Doesn't matter the name, but that's the one that first popularized near-death experiences. So
Mhm.
I read his book. Then suddenly there was a flood of interest in death for the first time, really, in our, in modern world. Since that flood in the early part of the 20th century, and Max Planck's work, which frankly was what scared the bejesus out. Pardon me, they don't believe that word. But it really scared the scientists. They were terrified of the possibility that if they allowed people to continue to do quantum mechanics, we would discover God. Consciousness was the route to discovering God. So they tried, really, the traditional physicists, materialist physicists, tried to put a damper on quantum mechanics altogether, which to me is kind of horrifying to think of. But what they did manage to do was to limit what quantum mechanics could study. That's what they did. You have to study only material stuff.
It's really too bad,
To this day, my dear, to this day.
Hmm. I mean, I think it's great material stuff studied, but both should be equally funded, I think. It's important to learn about all of it. I'm hoping
You
we're moving.
cannot study the afterlife and be funded.
I
Now,
know.
ask yourself what the percentage of people who live now will ever die. It's a significant percentage.
Yeah, it's pretty significant.
So it seems to me only sensible that if there is any evidence at all, that some percentage of the people now alive will survive their deaths. Any percentage, say half, of them will survive their deaths. Is there any percentage at all, any evidence of all at all? 20% of the people now living will survive their deaths, do you think?
You mean like their consciousness will survive, their personality, or like their bodies that they won't?
Would
I
you
mean,
say, you're a woman on the street, and I'm stopping you on the street
mhm.
and asking you, do you think there's
Okay.
any evidence that 20% of the people now living will survive their deaths?
I think I think if we're out of a body, I think 100% of us, our
Okay,
personalities
well then,
continue.
would you say that it makes sense to investigate that evidence? Ma'am, I'm holding up a microphone.
Yes.
Okay, well, it is only because mainstream science to this day refuses to allow the possibility of life after death to be studied. That's the only reason it's not studied. The only reason.
Unfortunate.
Shame.
I can't remember who, but I remember there was a big physics conference and what's it like? Sir Roger Penrose or one of them. I can't remember who. Maybe it was um they tried to block one of the physicists from coming because he was studying this. And luckily all the speakers, the physicists speaking in the community got together and said if he wasn't allowed, they were all quitting. And I was, well, good for them. But yeah, I mean, this was an established physicist.
The
I wish I could
scientific
remember which
community
one.
has to this day successfully blocked any meaningful funding
Mhm.
of afterlife research. Or, if it's not been entirely blocked, they have managed to twist it to the point where they have successfully proven that it's all anecdotal evidence. None of it's real. They have been able to do this to this day.
I find it
Why?
so weird.
They have the reason seems to be that they are trying to prevent religion from seizing the high ground or the truth in some fashion. Now,
And
indeed,
it
if there is a God, they're going to be probably put over that God's knee one by one when they get where they're going. I have no idea why at this point they think that's still a good idea, but
Mhm.
that's the way it is to this day. To this day, I don't know what to say to it. It's at this point ridiculous, beyond ridiculous.
seems unscientific because they're not
Oh,
delving
at the very
in.
least, it is, my dear, is unscientific. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything with a dogma attached, that's a
Mhm.
religious term, by the way. Anything with a dogma is a religion by definition. So, science, mainstream science, is the religion of materialist atheism. That's what it is.
Right. Yeah, well, and also I can understand, I believe this is Dr. Ed May will say he doesn't think there's an afterlife. He thinks there's going to be an explanation in physics that explains all the phenomena and it's not an afterlife, but he knows he admits the phenomena is happening. And I'm like, that's fair. That's a fair conclusion because he's not
Oh,
denying what
no, it
he's
is not a
seeing.
fair conclusion. He's never investigated it. What he has
Dr.
just,
Ed May, has he not? I thought
no, no.
investigation. Am I wrong? Okay. I stand corrected then.
No,
Okay.
nobody who has investigated it has
Mhm.
ever proven that these phenomena, I mean, you can't prove a negative.
Right. That's true.
So
Yeah.
he's never investigated these phenomena at all.
Hmm.
He is just saying, I'm sure we can prove that they're not real because I know
Hmm.
they're not real because I don't believe in them.
Hmm.
You can say that,
Yeah. I
but
think
that doesn't mean they're not real.
you can also say there maybe is an explanation we don't understand yet. If you're, you know what I mean? I do think you can say that. Or
No, you
maybe
can't. No, you
I
can't
hope
and be
I hope you
honest.
can't. I hope you can't. You're making me feel really good because I still have that half
I mean,
skepticism.
I've been continuing to investigate open-mindedly for 50 years. And
Hmm.
I continue to investigate every bit of evidence I can turn up. If I turn up any evidence, believe me that this stuff is not real, I will tell you.
Yeah.
I have long since stopped questioning the truth.
Mhm. And you're 100% in now there's an afterlife. Ugh, that makes
Oh
me
my
so
goodness.
happy.
No question. No, there's no question at all, my dear.
Okay.
It's
I'm
not,
about
no,
90%.
I'm going to put it to you differently. There is a before and an after to this very temporary bit of time we spend in Earth School. We are here very briefly, and we come and go from this very, very. Think of it as we have grouped what is really a great, it's hundreds of levels of energy levels of consciousness. We've grouped them into 8 levels. Long before I was born, the afterlife researchers grouped them into 8 levels. The lowest level is the only one that is based on materialism and has the kind of physics that is studied that's based in matter, little uh, round things that go and it's basically whirling matter, all those little um, I don't know what you can even call them, all the particles, the various particles. It's grounded that way in those little particles, mainly so our minds can't mess with it here. Otherwise, if you didn't like the fact that you were about to be in an auto crash, you would just dematerialize the car in front of you with your mind and rematerialize it in front of a way that you wouldn't hit it. It would be easy. You could just mess with matter so easily because your mind is very powerful, but as it is, since you can't mess with the matter so much, you have to take the lessons that happen to us here. That lowest matter level has above it kinds of gradually higher and higher vibrating consciousness. But each of them is grouped kinds of sort of higher and higher vibrating consciousness. The one that's slightly higher is what Jesus called the outer darkness, where there is wailing and gnashing of teeth. It's not hell. It's just cold, dark, smelly, disgusting. You put yourself there. Nobody puts you there, but it's the lowest vibration. Then we have levels 3 through 5. 3 is the entry level where everybody goes back or leaves from. 3, 4, and 5 are what the Vikings called the Summerland. They're the beautiful parts of they're the lovely heaven that we come and go and stuff. But that's where we live. That's where we spend 99.999% of eternity in the Summerland. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. That's home. That's home. This isn't
Yeah.
home. That's home. Then there's level 6, which is the causal level. That's where we think up everything that exists on the Summerland. And then there's level 7, which is where the Godhead is, and where we eventually can go if we vibrate high enough. It's all determined by consciousness vibration, from the very highest to the very lowest. Does that make sense?
Does. And is this the lowest, us here on Earth, you
We
think?
are
Or is this
below the
the lowest?
lowest.
Or the lowest?
We all vibrate higher naturally than this level, which is why
Hmm.
as soon as we are free of our bodies, immediately we rise from here. Immediately.
Yeah.
But
It's interesting.
that's what we have determined is going on.
Hmm.
So this isn't home. This ain't home, guys. This is just where we come to school. This is just one very bad day in school when we come here to learn. And if we can raise our consciousness vibration here, and Jesus told us just how to do it, and it works beautifully, then we never have to come back if we can raise it high enough. Isn't that beautiful? So
Do you
let's,
not want to come back ever?
no, boy,
No.
when you go home, you'll see why. It's so much
Okay.
better there.
Hmm.
You won't want to come. You can come back anytime you want to. All you need is a body. There are not enough bodies being born. We have to try to make more people get more serious about find a man, get more.
I'm working on it. I'm working
Yeah,
on it.
I don't know when it's good enough for you, but you gotta find a really good one. I've been married more than 50 years at this point.
Nice,
I
nice.
found a good one.
Mhm. But there's probably also a lot of babies on other planets too, other species, maybe human, maybe, there's so many Goldilocks planets. There's
This
probably options all through
this is the best
the
planet to
universe.
be born on because it's the toughest one.
Is this the
The
toughest?
lessons
I'm
here
surprised.
are tough. And so
Yeah.
you can make it in one lifetime. You can get to the top of level 5 in in this lifetime. And when you do that, you've graduated and you don't ever have to come back.
Hmm.
That's
I
what
think
you,
I'd like to come back, but it depends what the life would be, you know? I definitely
well,
want to come back with some conditions.
yeah, well, yeah, but you see that you want to come here, have a tough life, ace it, and then you can choose. Because each of those levels is the size of this universe. There's so much fun to be had. There's so much you can do. There's so many places you can go. Well, you just we this one of the great philosophers talked about our lives here like being chained inside a cave looking at a wall. And we think, oh, those shadows look on the wall are so beautiful. I don't ever want to leave this cave where I can see all those beautiful shadows on the wall. That's what it's like to live in this on this planet. Think how much more
Yeah.
beautiful it is when we get to go outside that cave and see the sunshine. That's
Right,
when it makes
right,
you go home. But we don't get that when we're here. We don't see how much more we can see when we finally get to go home. So
right.
yeah, I want to go home.
I guess that's why they say like the more people get more like, you know, out of body experiences. Some will say with some near death experiences or knowing it or more mediums. So they're like, no one fears death anymore the further you go with this.
Oh no, I don't fear I don't fear death at all. No.
No.
And you won't either. I mean, you know, when your body becomes uninhabitable, there will be your father and smiling at you and
No.
laughing with you and saying, "Come on, we're about to have so much fun."
It was so much fun. That's the best line. I've heard lines like that where people are like, it's just, I was hearing a group medium reading and, the medium was telling the mother who, her son had sadly passed, and he was just like, you don't understand. You thought I was having a good time there. That was nothing. So that was early in my grief, and I was like, oh, that makes me happy because my dad he hadn't enjoyed life, anymore. Like he'd had a stroke. He was like,
Oh
he didn't want to
no,
get
oh
old.
no, and he's
And he didn't
young.
even want to get old.
Everybody is 30 or less. Everybody is having a heck of a
I'm
time.
gonna be like 19. That's gonna be the age I pick.
Well, with whatever age you want to look and feel, and you may find that there were other lifetimes when you were like an African queen or some beautiful,
Mm,
beautiful creature, and you can look like that person. We recognize each other by our spiritual energies, so people will know who you are even if you don't look like you looked in this lifetime. It's just everything
fascinating.
about it is so glorious. And
Mm.
so, and yet, to everyone listening, if you kill yourself here, everything I'm saying gets nixed out. You have to go at your exit point and no other time.
Right.
So that's why I expect to live to be 100. Thomas is already telling me I have to stay a good long time because I came to teach. And
In the
I've got
teach. Well, I mean, your messages are so uplifting. I mean, I thought I could be uplifting because I study this, but I'm still the 5%. You're 100% after having done this for
oh,
as long as you have.
yeah.
It makes me already as a researcher who's fairly on board feel very encouraged.
Oh yeah, you're just gonna love it. You're gonna say no, I don't. Get to the point where you don't have to come back, and then if you want to come back, you surely can because they love it
Hmm.
to come back to teach. Thomas tells me I'm gonna want to come back. He's my spirit guide. He tells me I'm gonna want to come back to teach. And I tell him, He says I will, so probably I will. But we
Yeah.
have come to the end of our time and then some. So what do you want people to take away from our conversation today?
I mainly want people to take away, I think I mentioned it at the beginning, but it's something that's so life-changing for me. If you are in pain and grief or just existential dread, like, and you're stuck in what I can get stuck in sometimes, as we talked about science not believing this, and it makes you just, it doesn't make sense. One thing I'll get stuck on is it doesn't make sense to me what form this non-physical consciousness could be. And you're like, well, it doesn't make sense. none of it makes sense. Consciousness doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how it'd be created by a brain. That's so weird too. It's all just weird. So neither consciousness created by a brain or download by a brain makes sense. But there's a lot more, there's so much phenomena that happens that is absolutely 100% impossible if it's created by a brain. And that's something I always go back to. So I
Oh,
hope I'll
that's
leave
true.
you
Yeah.
with that. And hopefully that helps anyone in grief or, questioning.
Yeah. It is just all so joyous.
Mhm.
Yeah, that little moment of leaving here is a little bit probably scary. My goodness, where am I going? But as soon as you get rid of that old crummy body, wow, you have a round, one instant later, this beautiful new body that is you, and that's truly you. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. Stay right there. I just have to tell everybody who's going to be with us next week, and we are going to have fun then too, because this everything is all about joy. Everyone, this has been so much fun. This has been Secret Reality with Roberta Grimes. I'm so happy you were with us today. Hasn't this been exciting and enjoyable? Never forget, you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never, ever will end. And when you get that, it changes everything in your life for the better. Next week, our guest will also be someone who's new to Seek Reality, and she's someone who was recommended by our wonderful friend Sandra Champlain. So look out, this is going to be fun. Kim Hodos, I think that's how I say her name, went through the temporary loss in this lifetime of two children, and she proved clearly that death is not separation at all. It's transformation, and love is the eternal thread that binds us across all the realms of existence. I'm sorry, I've been talking too much. She is the author of Beyond Grief: How a Son's Afterlife Connection Transformed a Mother's Loss into a Remarkable Spiritual Journey. And there, she shares the beautiful continuation of her relationship with Rob beyond the veil. Her work dismantles our culture's limited understanding of grief, revealing it not to be an ending at all, but rather a sacred initiation into deeper spiritual truths. Her book, I am told, is beautiful. I haven't yet received it, but please join us next week and see how a mother who has undergone the worst loss has nevertheless established a relationship with her son which is ongoing and has triumphed for the mother even over that greatest loss. And this week we've been talking with Elizabeth Entin about her first book, which is called it's called WTF Just Happened. This Entin is pretty much a member of my club, as you can see, and I loved her as soon as I even saw the title of her book. And she, after her father died, she was a grieving skeptic, and she's 99% of the way there now. She's an atheist to boot, but she set out to investigate evidence for the afterlife, and what she saw blew her away. She's pretty much most of the way there now, which is what happened to me when I was very young. And in her WTF Just Happened series, she's already written two books. She does a podcast and she runs private events as well. So just like her friend Sandra, my friend Sandra Champlain, I think she knows Sandra too. And like actually all of us who have done this research, we're becoming a tribe, I think, who are telling the world what the truth is, and the truth is beyond anything that anyone could ever tell you. So please read our books, her books, Sandra's book, my books too, and learn the truth for yourself, because you're not going to want to go there ahead of your time, but believe me, when it's time for you to go, you're going to say, wow, what I say and my friends say every day, one day closer. I'm sorry, we don't have time for anything else. I was going to tell you about what other people are doing in this field, but there's no more time. Please just enjoy and make the most of this coming week in our one reality, always knowing that you in particular are a powerful, eternal being, and you, most of all in this entire universe, are infinitely, eternally, perfectly, and forever loved.